It's here. 2024 can arguably be called the year of the rye whiskey. More distillers are focusing special releases surrounding rye whiskeys more than ever. Wild Turkey Master's Keeps overall has gone through kind of a rapid evolution over the last several years. Once, Master's Keeps were releases that were seemingly always sitting on shelves, even collecting dust. They could have been behind the counter at your local liquor store or in a glass case, but still selling at a retail price sub $200. I would say around 2019 and 2020 is when things started to shift, not only in availability for Master's Keep being much harder to find, but also prices creeping up each year for the foreseeable future. So here we are today with the newest Master's Keep from Wild Turkey. It's named Triumph, and it's the oldest age-stated rye whiskey ever to be released by Wild Turkey, but it comes with a big SRP of $275. Let's taste it, break it down, we'll compare it to Cornerstone. It's the Mash and Drum. What's up, folks? I'm Jason C. from the Mash and Drum, and welcome back to the show. Like, subscribe, and help keep growing the channel to 100,000 subscribers here in 2024. As always, thank you so much for all the positive feedback and the support. So historically, American interest in rye whiskey declined after the end of Prohibition, and Wild Turkey for a long time was actually sourcing aged rye whiskey from Illinois, Pennsylvania, and Maryland. Now, Jimmy Russell himself is not known to be a big rye whiskey lover, so Wild Turkey being known as a premier producer of rye whiskey was pretty far-fetched until Eddie Russell came along. Now, when Eddie Russell joined Wild Turkey, he decided to change that mindset a little bit by creating Russell's Reserve 6-year-old rye in 2007, and then Russell's Reserve Single Barrel Rye around 2015. Slowly, the production of rye whiskey began increasing, and more time from Wild Turkey was being given to the category, especially with Eddie Russell's son, Bruce Russell, coming into the fold. As I mentioned, we saw the first Master's Keep rye ever with Cornerstone in 2019, and now here in 2024 with Master's Keep Triumph. Now, if you talk to Bruce Russell and learn his love of rye whiskey, this isn't just coincidence. There's a direct correlation between Bruce's love for rye whiskey and the evolution of what we're seeing from Wild Turkey. So what we have in the new Wild Turkey Master's Keep Triumph is a 104 proof, non-chill filtered Kentucky straight rye whiskey with an age statement of 10 years, but reportedly some 12-year-old whiskey is also blended in. Now, the name Triumph, as per Wild Turkey, speaks to the contemporary revival of rye whiskey, now recognized for its quality and distinctive profile, and to Wild Turkey's reverence for all the spirit has to offer. It's got a mash bill of 52% rye, 36% corn, 12% malted barley, and as I mentioned, the SRP for this one is $275. Now, I do have Cornerstone. As I said, we will do a quick comparison a little bit later, and I only have a slight bit of that one left, so we'll probably bottle kill that one. So let's get into the nose here. Here we go. I'm excited to try this for you guys. I do get that Wild Turkey citrus. That's so, like, if you've ever had rare breed rye smells like straight up orange creamsicle to me, and it tastes like it a little bit too, you know, with some rye spice. But this, on the other hand, it's definitely a darker profile. Yeah, honey, definitely some apples here, but like a warm apple pie, some cinnamon. You definitely get the oak here, which I really like. It's definitely a punch above like what you would get in a Russell's Reserve single barrel rye whiskey. Man, you could convince me this is a bourbon off the nose. It's pretty sweet. This does have a nice citrus note here, probably more along the lines of, you know, it's not that creamsicle note. It's more of almost like a flamed orange peel or a grilled orange peel, or, you know, something like a smoked orange. Maybe more of like a blood orange, even like a mandarin orange, just something that's a little bit deeper and richer. But it's definitely darker and richer than most Wild Turkey ryes that I've tried, or smelled at least, but let's give it a try. Here we go. Triumph. Wow. You know, I'll say this. The first thing that is standing out is the texture, the mouthfeel of it. Very creamy. It coats the palate. But the palate, though, again, it's bringing more of like a bourbon vibe to me. A lot of rich caramel, some toffee there. I think that apple note is very prevalent. That honey is still there. But again, the apple is not like a fresh cut apple. It's more of an apple pie type thing that's happening for me. Let's get another sip of that. This thing just starts to bloom right at mid palate. Yeah, it has this combination of citrus that I really enjoy, but it's not bright. Everything is just darker. It's almost this combination of like dark lemon, dark orange, maybe even a dark lime type thing going on, but it's all covered in like caramel and honey, toffee. And then the finish is just all baking spice, which is a note from Wild Turkey rye whiskeys that are pretty prevalent usually. So you get your cinnamon, your nutmegs, your allspice, your clove, all of that kind of working together on the finish here. So as the sips continue, the oak starts to come more to the forefront, especially on the finish. The citrus is still there, but I think the oakier profile, the age coming to play here, the 10 and the 12-year-old rye whiskeys. And remember, rye whiskeys seem to develop a little bit faster than bourbon does. That's why you see more rye whiskeys that are released at 2 to 4 years old, rather than bourbon, which hopefully you see more at like a 5 or 6-year-old age statement when they start to release for the first time. So when you talk about 10 to 12 years for rye, it definitely could be a little bit more of a developed flavor profile. All right, one more sip here, we'll compare it to Cornerstone. Yeah, again, the more I sip this, the more the oak is coming to the forefront. All those sweet bourbon-esque flavors, the caramel, the toffee, the vanilla extract, again, kind of mixed with that citrus punch that I was getting. And actually, citrus punch is a good way to describe it because it's all kind of together for me. But it just seems like everything was kind of just grilled and you get this barrel char on it. Then it finishes with some nice oak. It's definitely the most complex rye whiskey I think I've had from Wild Turkey, but let's try it against Cornerstone. All right, you guys remember this one? Master's Keep Cornerstone Triumph. Now, I mentioned I didn't have a lot of this one left, and I really don't. Yeah, that's all I have left on this one. Just a little bit of Wild Turkey Cornerstone. So the Master's Keep Cornerstone was released in 2019. Again, we're talking about 109 proof, 9 to 11 year Kentucky straight whiskey compared to the 10 to 12 year that's in the Triumph. Non-chill filtered as well, and at the time, this was $175. So Triumph, again, we're seeing that big jump, a whole $100 more than what Cornerstone was. So let's dive in. Wow, when you compare them, the extra maturation in the Triumph is very prevalent. The Wild Turkey Master's Keep, remember I was telling you about that citrus punch? In the Wild Turkey Cornerstone, that is more of like a lemon lime soda almost coming off the nose here. And I do think it's mixed with those baking spices we talked about earlier that we find in the finish of the Triumph. All right, let's try the Cornerstone. Now, when the Cornerstone came out, everyone said that, wow, did not know that Wild Turkey can do rye like this. And while it was impressive at the time, I do think that the Triumph is definitely a step up just from what I'm tasting. This is brighter, more citrus. This reminds me more of an elevated Wild Turkey rare breed rye with some more age on it. And again, maybe mixed with some of that Russell's, the Russell single barrel rye whiskeys. It's kind of more of the profile what I'm used to from Wild Turkey rye whiskeys, but obviously a little bit more elevated. All right, to the Triumph here. Yeah, the Triumph is just delicious. There's no way around it. Again, I will still say that I think the Triumph is more bourbon-esque than it could be even seen as a rye whiskey. I mean, to me, it just comes off like a Bourye, and I really do feel like it's more bourbon than rye. The rye notes that you get really is that punch of citrus and all the baking spice at the end, when that clove and the allspice kind of comes into play. But man, up front, it's just like, it's kind of candy. It's just the caramel, the toffee, that baked apple note, I absolutely love in this one. Again, it's going into my point more and more that the Master's Keep Triumph drinks a little bit more like a Bourye, leaning a little bit more on the bourbon. All right, let me think about this one and let's do a final breakdown. All right, I've thought about it. It's final breakdown time on the Master's Keep Triumph. So price for this one, SRP, $275. Resale market value, I've seen these as high as about $400. Availability is limited, but given that it's a rye whiskey instead of a bourbon, it'll be interesting to see how fast these sell, especially at the price point. Value for this one, for me, generally I would probably say it's a low value given it's a rye whiskey, but for me, I was ready to kind of go low value, but I'll say this, I'll say below average because I think what's in the bottle is actually really, really good. So I'm not gonna say low, but I'll say it's below average. Most I'd pay is easy, retail. I would not pay over retail to get this one. Now I got this bottle from a great patron of mine. He was kind enough to send this along. And I'm glad he did because I was very much on the fence about whether or not I was gonna buy this one. But given that I tasted it, I probably would buy it, but I am not paying a penny over retail. Alternatives for this one. It's hard to ignore just, grabbing a good Russell's Reserve single barrel rye whiskey. Now the Russell's Reserve single barrel rye whiskey store picks are starting to come back. So I would probably lean into more of those if you could find them. But outside of Wild Turkey, you're definitely gonna think of the Michter's single barrel 10-year, which I think could be really good. I definitely see a double base coming between that one and the Wild Turkey Master's Keep Triumph. And also something outside that realm too could be Sagamore 8-year. Sagamore 8-year as a blend of high rye and low rye whiskeys, and I think plays into that bourbon-esque Bourye type of flavor profile that the Triumph has. And lastly, the recommendation, is it a skip? Is it a try before you buy? Is it a buy? Is it a buy and back it up? I think there are some folks that are gonna buy this outright because they wanna continue to keep that vertical going with all the Master's Keeps. People like to continue that collection, so they have every single one. So there's that audience. Then you have the audience that is a Wild Turkey fans like I am that are gonna buy this one. So for me personally, it's a buy because I do think it's the best rye whiskey that I've ever tasted from Wild Turkey. It's like they took all that experience from making rye whiskeys once Eddie Russell came on and Bruce Russell kind of just evolving that experience and evolving the craftsmanship around it. I think overall $275 is gonna be a lot to pay for this one for a lot of people, especially given it's a rye whiskey. If it was a bourbon, I think it would do a little bit better, but I think a lot of folks will ignore this one, especially if they're not really Wild Turkey fans. They don't wanna pay $275. The whiskey market is shifting. People are paying less, or people are wanting to pay less for special releases. And I think this is kind of a reach, from Wild Turkey and from Campari. And for those of you that take a chance on this bottle, I still think you're gonna love it because, like I said, it leans more towards sweet than it does rye whiskey. And I just think it's a damn delicious rye. All right, guys, well, hope you enjoyed this review for the new Master's Keep Triumph. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that subscribe button below. Please hit the like button. And if you haven't yet, follow me on Instagram. Let me know down in the comments where you fall. If you see this bottle, you buying it? Are you skipping it? Do you not care because it's a rye? If it was a bourbon, would you buy it? And with that said, like I always say, it's not about the whiskey, it's the people you share it with. Cheers, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time right here on The Master and Drum. Cheers.